Investors on Wall Street didn't panic Wednesday, even as protesters backing President Donald Trump stormed the Capitol and put the building into lockdown. Mayhem in the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday as swarms of protesters supporting outgoing President Donald Trump stormed the building in an attempt to force Congress to undo Trump's election loss. The Trump administration is considering adding Alibaba Group and Tencent Holdings to a blacklist of Chinese companies that are allegedly owned or controlled by the Chinese military. These and more on TFT News. I'm Mike Wallace, and this is TFT News. Mayhem in the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday as swarms of protesters supporting outgoing President Donald Trump stormed the building in an attempt to force Congress to undo Trump's election loss.
Mayhem in the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday as swarms of protesters supporting outgoing President Donald Trump stormed the building in an attempt to force Congress to undo Trump's election loss. Police drew guns and fired tear gas after pro-Trump protesters marched through the halls of Congress.
Everybody stay down! Get down!
House members were told by police to lie on the floor and grab gas masks under their seats. Police said a woman had died after being shot at the Capitol. The National Guard was also deployed to the scene. Some lawmakers live tweeted the dramatic lockdown, one calling it surreal, another, Dan Kildee of Michigan, saying, quote, "This is not a protest, this is an attack on America." The chaotic scenes unfolded after Trump addressed thousands of protesters and repeated false claims that the election was stolen from him due to widespread fraud.
We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved.
Trump also applied fresh pressure to Vice President Mike Pence, who had been presiding over the joint session of Congress and had to be escorted from the Senate, to unilaterally reject state electoral college votes.
And I hope Mike is going to do the right thing. I hope so. I hope so.
Trump later posted a video on Twitter in which he repeated his unsupported claim that the election was stolen from him, but called for peace and told his supporters to go home.
This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people.
Outside the Capitol, members of militia groups and far-right groups, some in body armor, mingled with the crowds. President-elect Joe Biden said it was an unprecedented assault on U.S. democracy and called for the siege to end.
It's not protest, it's insurrection.
And the head of a business group that represents 14,000 companies, including ExxonMobil, Pfizer, and Toyota, urged senior U.S. officials to consider invoking the 25th Amendment to remove Trump from office. Washington Mayor Muriel Bowers ordered a citywide curfew that began at 6 p.m.
The Dow and the S&P 500 ended higher, soaring to all-time highs on Wednesday as investors shrugged off unrest in the Capitol and piled into financial and industrial stocks on bets a Democratic sweep in Georgia would lead to more fiscal stimulus and infrastructure spending.
Investors on Wall Street did not panic Wednesday, even as protesters backing President Donald Trump stormed the Capitol and put the building into lockdown. Stocks paired some of their earlier gains, yet the Dow and S&P 500 still soared to all-time highs. Spartan Capital Securities chief market economist Peter Cardillo said Wall Street looked past the chaos in Washington toward Georgia, betting that a Democratic sweep in that state, which delivers Democratic control to the Senate, will lead to more fiscal stimulus and infrastructure spending.
I'm just mesmerized at this. I can't believe what's going on in the marketplace after what's taking place in Washington. I mean, here we have the Capitol under siege. We have the President of the United States who delivered to his supporters a very defiant speech saying that he would never concede to an illegitimate president. And yet the market is ignoring this. I want to think that maybe the market investors think, well, this is going to blow over by the end of the day, and that President-elect Biden will be certified by Congress, and we look forward to more stimulants and perhaps a big infrastructure deal.
A Democrat-controlled Senate typically ushers in increased fiscal spending, but raises the chances of tax hikes and tighter regulation. And so, tech stocks fell as investors flocked to economically sensitive sectors such as financials, materials, and energy stocks. That drove the Dow up nearly 1.5% and the S&P 500 up more than 0.5%. But the Nasdaq fell almost 2/3%. The potential for Democratic control of Congress also sent the yield on the benchmark 10-year Treasury above 1%, a level not seen since March.
The Trump administration is considering adding Alibaba Group and Tencent Holdings to a blacklist of Chinese companies that are allegedly owned or controlled by the Chinese military.
Just days before he's due to leave office, US President Donald Trump is cementing his tough approach to China. Reuters sources say Trump is considering adding tech giants Alibaba and Tencent to a blacklist of companies alleged to be owned or controlled by the Chinese military. If that goes ahead, US investors would be blocked from owning shares in two of China's most valuable companies. Alibaba and Tencent did not immediately respond to Reuters' requests for comment. The Trump administration has been ramping up efforts to deprive Chinese companies of US investment and goods. China's biggest chip maker, SMIC, and top telecom giant, Huawei, are already subject to a US trade blacklist, meaning that US companies have to have a license to export products to them. On Tuesday, Trump signed an executive order barring transactions with 8 Chinese software applications, including Ant Group's Alipay. It will be up to US President-elect Joe Biden to decide whether he enforces these policies. Beijing has accused the US of what it called an unreasonable suppression of Chinese companies.
Impossible Foods, maker of the plant-based Impossible Burger, said on Wednesday it would cut prices in the United States by about 15% amid increasing demand for its alternative meat and urged distributors to pass on the savings to restaurants and consumers.
For the second time in a year, Impossible Foods announced a price cut on its meat alternative products, urging wholesalers to pass that cost saving on to consumers. The 15% price cut announced Wednesday will bring the lowest possible price for an Impossible Burger to about $6.80 per pound in the U.S. Even with that discount, the Impossible plant-based burger will still be more than double the price of traditional ground beef per pound. Impossible Foods, which competes against startup Beyond Meat, has several retail and restaurant partners in the U.S., including Burger King, Starbucks, and White Castle. Prices are also going down in international markets. The price cuts come amid surging demand for the meat alternative, which grew even stronger during the health crisis as animal meat producers struggled with production shutdowns to curb sickness on factory floors, which led to meat shortages at supermarkets. With demand high and production increasing 6-fold since 2019 in order to keep up, Impossible Foods says the business model can now sustain another price reduction. And according to a statement from CEO Patrick Brown, more price cuts are coming as he aims to bring the price of alternative meat low enough to undercut the price of farm-based meat.
Amazon said on Wednesday it would spend $2 billion to create affordable homes in regions where 3 of its major U.S. employment hubs are located.
Amazon on Wednesday said it would spend $2 billion to create affordable homes in areas where 3 of its major U.S. employment hubs are located. The goal? At least 20,000 affordable housing units in the Puget Sound area of Washington state, Arlington, Virginia, where there are plans for another Amazon hub, and Nashville, Tennessee. Amazon.com said a large chunk of its investment will be through low-cost loans to preserve or build housing for moderate to low-income families. Amazon and other tech companies have faced criticism in recent years for driving up home prices in places like San Francisco due to an influx of tech workers. Facebook and Google have invested in affordable housing too, attempting to ease the strain on neighborhoods flooded with employees.
President-elect Joe Biden will nominate federal appeals Judge Merrick Garland to be the next U.S. Attorney General, a Biden transition official said on Wednesday.
President-elect Joe Biden will nominate Judge Merrick Garland to serve as his Attorney General. That's according to a Biden transition official Wednesday. Many Americans know Garland as the judge President Barack Obama picked for the Supreme Court in 2016.
This is the greatest honor of my life.
But his nomination was blocked by Senate Republicans on the grounds the appointment should not occur in a presidential election year.
Remains about a principle.
A stance that came under intense criticism at the time, and then again in 2020, when Senate's Majority Leader Mitch McConnell rushed to confirm President Donald Trump's nominee, Amy Coney Barrett, after the death of liberal icon Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That confirmation coming just days before the presidential election.
And defend the Constitution.
Garland, who has served on the federal appeals bench since 1997, is no stranger to the Justice Department. He previously served as Principal Deputy Associate Attorney General and worked as a federal prosecutor where he helped secure a conviction against Oklahoma City bomber Timothy McVeigh. He was also on the team that helped secure a conviction of former D.C. Mayor Marion Barry for cocaine possession. Garland, as Attorney General, will have significant power to address issues Biden has pledged to prioritize, like ending the use of the federal death penalty and restoring the Justice Department's role of investigating and holding police departments accountable for systemic misconduct.
And those are the latest business and global news. I'm Mike Wallace, and this is TFT News.